Now, from the time Ben Franklin discovered electricity by flying his famous kite with a key on it in a thunderstorm until we had electric lights in 1890 was about 100 years. You know, from about 1790 to 1890, about 100 years, we developed electric lights. You know, Ben Franklin wasn't technologically advanced in electricity or electronics. But in 100 years, watch what happens. 100 years later, we've got computers in 1990. Now, these people before the flood were living to be 900 years old. Now, picture a civilization in which people don't die, for hundreds of years. When I develop my knowledge, I have to write that down. My entire working career started at about age 30. From age 0 to age 30, I didn't accomplish anything in life. I'd never written a book. I'd never written anything down of any consequence. Maybe a couple of love letters to my girlfriend. That was about the extent of my writing career. From age 30 until age 65, I have written, I couldn't count the number of books that I've written. I probably have 50 or 75 books. I wrote a lot of material. I write on legal subjects, and I have a lot of written material here. I teach school. I write most of the material that goes into my textbooks. Now, I'm going to die here pretty shortly. Certainly within the next 30 years, I'm going to be history. I'm going to be dead and buried. My entire working career, everything that I have learned, everything that I have written down and preserved for the next generation had to have been done in about 40 working years. Can you imagine what I could accomplish if I could live to be 300 years old? Can you imagine how much I would write, how much I would know, how much I could disseminate to the next generation if I had 300 years to do what I've done over the past 40? So it doesn't strike me as being preposterous that people before the flood had developed electricity and electric light bulbs. Hell, we did it in the last 200. Adam didn't even have children till he was 130. The guy lives to be, 930 years old. He could have done it by himself. All right. Furthermore, it's been reported that those people before the flood were smarter than we are today. Their IQs were better. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I wouldn't doubt it. We're digging up now in archaeological digs, we're digging up the evidence that they had electroplating, for crying out loud. That's pretty significant metallurgy. And the Bible reports that they were artificers in brass and iron in Genesis chapter 4. Now, people that are artificers in brass and iron are advanced. They're ahead of casting cannon in sand, which is where we were with Columbus in 1500. So from 1500 to 2000, we had made gigantic strides in metallurgy. We were making railroad rails, building iron ships by 1900. Now look where we're at. We have aluminum, titanium, all kinds of metal and metallurgy that now make our modern technology possible, such as computers. Now, there's an electric battery from ancient Babylon. There's a diagram here by Andrew Thomas, and it's in the form of a clay pot with an electrode down through the bottom, which holds the acid inside, with an iron rod, copper cylinder, earthenware jar, copper disc, wire out the top, with a pitch collar, and an unknown electrolyte. That's what they dug out back in the 1880s, and then took it back to the British Museum. Didn't know what they had. You dig something out of the ground, and you say, well, I don't know what this is. It almost reminds me of the medical scientists, They take a look at human anatomy 100 years ago and say, well, these are vestigial organs. We don't know what a tonsil or an adenoid or an appendix does in the body, so therefore, because of our theory of evolution, we believe that these are vestigial organs. And so when I was a kid, they used to cut people's tonsils and adenoids out. I don't know how I survived it. I guess it was my old granny who used to say, if God had intended, then he would have done. That was her mantra. If God had intended that, he would have done it. Every kid in school had his tonsils and adenoids removed. Now we find out it's a part of your immune system. One doctor reported he had never seen a case of a person who had tonsils and adenoids. It's a part of your immune system, kids.